Hello there. Today is a mental health awareness day, and I just want to come on here and just talk about mental health and mental health issues. Sometimes there is a misconception about what mental health is all about, but today I just want to talk about mental health and let us help to destigmatize mental health. What is mental health? Sometimes when we talk about mental health, people think that, somebody who is crazy, somebody who is dirty and disheveled hair and walking about talking to themselves, they are the people with mental health. No, that is an aspect of mental health, but that is not what mental health is all about. Mental health can affect anybody. It's not only somebody who is dirty and walking around that is affected by mental health. But mental health is actually an imbalance in the chemicals in the brain. And normally there should be a balance between happiness and sadness. And whenever there is an imbalance in this aspect, when sadness overtakes and overshadows happiness, we have a mental health issue in there. Mental health is basically anything that affects your psychological, physical, sociological aspect of your body and your mind. It's where your mind and your emotions sit. The soul is where your mind and your emotions sit. And sometimes when there is a chemical imbalance in the brain, it affects people's behavior, it affects the way they feel, and then the way they think. So basically, mental health is the ability to cope with things that are happening around you that can impact on the way you think, the way you feel, and the way you behave. So if you are not able to cope with things that are happening around you in terms of your choices that you make, the way you think and the way you feel, then we can say that you are having a mental health issue. Everybody has mental health, but it's not everybody who have mental wellness. Mental wellness is our ability to cope with things that are happening around us or things that are happening to us, emotional well-being and mental well-being. Who are those who can be affected by mental health issues? Anybody born of a woman can be affected by mental health issues. Mental health issues can affect a child or an adult. It can affect somebody who is rich or somebody who is poor. It can affect somebody who is young, and it can affect somebody who is old. It can affect a Christian or an atheist. It doesn't matter whether you are a Christian or you are not. It can still affect you. When we go into the Bible, there are characters in the Bible who walked closely with God, who God used to perform miracles in their life. But we are told that at a point in time, they became burnout and they went through stress and depression, oppression, and they were not able to cope. When your body is not able to cope with stress or depression or an anxiety, it becomes a mental health issue. Let's look at Saul, King Saul. He was the first king in the Bible, and we are told that he went through some emotional distress. It got to a point he couldn't cope with things that were happening around him, but he spoke out to the people who were around him, to his servants and other people, and somebody suggested that they should go and call on David to come and play the harp for him. And the Bible says that when they called on David and David came in to play the harp for him, he was able to calm down, and anytime David played the harp, it became very therapeutic for him. And then we also have David himself. David at a point in time went to war with his warriors and his soldiers, but he came back And by the time he came back, the enemy had come in to destroy their properties, take away their wives and their children. And his soldiers were so angry with David for letting them go out to the battlefield that they turned against him and they threatened his life. At that particular time, what was happening around David, he wasn't able to cope emotionally or mentally. He became distraught to the point that he began to speak to himself. At one point he said, "Why are you so disquieted within me, oh my soul? Hope in the Lord." He was distraught. He was so down. He was so depressed. So we get to know that he wasn't able to cope with what was happening around him. So that is an example of a mental health issue. Then we also have Moses. Moses at a point in time was so stressed out that even when he was talking to God, he became so irritable that he even told God, God, these people, did I give birth to them? Am I their biological father or something? He was going through it and he couldn't cope emotionally and mentally. So anytime something happened to you and you are not able to cope emotionally or mentally, you are going through mental health issue and you need to seek help. There is also Elijah. Elijah is known in the Bible as the prophet of fire. We all see the miracles. If you read the story about Elijah, you see the miracles that God used him to perform. But it got to a point in time that Jezebel was killing prophets around him. And based upon what he was hearing and what was happening around him, emotionally, he couldn't cope with what was happening. Mentally, he couldn't cope. It got to him, he became so distraught, he became so depressed that he ran away from his town. And when I was reading the story, I was surprised because Elijah was the prophet who was calling fire left and right. If it wasn't only when he called the fire to consume the wet logs, but he called the fire several times. Even people who were laughing at him, he will call the fire to come and consume them, or he will call animals to come and attack some people and all that. He was able to even an axe or something that fell in the water, he was able to miraculously bring that metal up. He did a lot of miracles, but it got to a point that he was feeling burnout. And he ran away into a cave. He came and sat under a juniper tree. And when he sat under the juniper tree, he expressed what was going on within him. He expressed the fact that he was going through some emotional and mental issues. He became suicidal. He began to have suicidal thoughts. It got to a point he said, "God, let me die. I'm not better than my ancestors, or I'm not better than the prophet who have gone before me. I'm fed up with life. Let me die." Anytime someone is fed up with life and want to die, that person is going through mental health issue. Suicidal thought is mental health issue. When we come into our world, there are some celebrities who have gone through mental health issues. We have Anthony Bourdain, who is a food connoisseur. He's been to Ghana before, he's been to UK before, he's been to all over the world. And life, if you step back and you look at his life, you would think that everything was going on well with him. But there were things happening that he couldn't cope emotionally and mentally. He was suffering from depression. He was suffering from a lot of things that he couldn't cope mentally. In the end, he committed suicide. We also have Kate Spade. Kate Spade is a brand in America. She was a designer. She came up with a whole lot of very colorful handbags and later sold his brand for millions of dollars. She had a lot of money. But there were things that were happening around her in her marriage and other things. Her marriage, loss of her marriage, caused her to, her emotional well-being spiraled down to the place that she committed suicide. We have McQueen. He is also a designer here in UK. Things were going on well with him, but all of a sudden we heard that Alexander McQueen couldn't cope with things that were happening around him, and he also committed suicide. Most of us know Robin Williams, the actor who made a lot of us laugh. I remember one of his films that I loved so much, Mrs. Doubtfire. He made us laugh so much, and sometimes when you look from afar, you may think that everything is all right with him, but he was going through mental health issues. He couldn't cope with things that were happening around him. So emotionally, he just gave up and committed suicide and died. We also know of Lady Diana. Lady Diana suffered from some type of mental health issue, which is called bulimia, food disorder, eating disorder. It's also a type of mental health issue. And people with that type of mental health issue, anytime they have a negative thought about food, so anytime they eat food, they will try one way or the other and bring the food out, either to put their hands in their throat and vomit everything out, or they will try everything to bring that food out. We also got to know later on that Lady Diana's children, Prince Harry and Prince Williams, also suffered from mental health issues. They spoke about it, that after the sudden death of their mom, emotionally and mentally they couldn't cope, and they ended up having mental health issue. Personally, I have gone through some mental health issue as a child. I didn't know at the time. I think I had my first bout of mental health issue when I was at the age of 8, when I lost my mom. It was a sudden death. It was a shock to me, and the trauma affected me at that time as a child. I couldn't cope. Here in UK, children who lose their parents are given some form of counseling or therapy to help them to cope at the schools. The schools do have some counselors who deal with children who go through divorce or who lose their parents. But back home in Ghana, when I was 8, I didn't have anybody to talk to me about what was happening. I didn't have any counseling, and it affected me. I couldn't eat because it was just the things that were happening around me. I remember that I would feel hungry, put food in my mouth, but I couldn't swallow food. So things that were happening around me was affecting me emotionally to the extent that even I couldn't swallow food. That is a mental health issue. A lot of children who lose their parents go through this traumatic experience, and they go through this mental health issue, and they don't get any help out there. I hope that today, even as we are learning about mental health issue, you will look out for people who are going through mental health issue and help them to seek help. Help them to go for counseling. If you know where they can find help, point to them that they can find help. There is help out there, and help them to get well. I will come again with the next part of the mental health issues, and I hope that this will help somebody to know when somebody is going through mental health and how to help. Bye.